everyone, Editing Greta here. I would like to start off by thoroughly apologizing for the audio in this week's episode. It is absolute garbage, primarily my audio. I am not sure what happened. I think I was just inputting audio from the wrong space, obviously. We will be super mindful of the audio moving forward in the next episodes. So, I'm sorry about that. Also, additionally, episodes will be back on Spotify today, the day I'm recording this, 13th of April. They will be back on there. Sorry they were off for a while, but they will be back. All right, that is everything for me today. I hope you enjoyed today's very special episode. And again, I'm so sorry for the audio quality. We will be more mindful moving forward. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Greta,
Hi, I'm Millie,
and you're listening to the Books We Meet in the Library.
a bookish podcast about reading and the book community.
Millie, what are you currently reading?
So, I am currently doing a reread of one of my favorite
Okay.
fantasy books of all times, which is The Ruin of Kings by Jen Lyons. It's the first book in a Chorus of Dragons series. And I read the first two books and then never continued with the series. And I'm just like, what am I thinking? So, I'm going back now to reread the first and second book and then finish off the series this year. That's my goal.
Okay, you have been in a bit of like a reread mood. You've been rereading a lot. Is everything okay?
Okay, so the problem is that I'm not rereading as a choice, okay? I'm rereading because I want to finish series that I've like postponed. And so unfortunately, it's been so long since I've read like the first book in that series that I have to go
Okay,
back and reread. So, yeah, this is the year of rereading books.
got it. Is this part of a video?
No, it's just part of my reading goals of like trying to finish series. I did so terrible
That's
last year,
nice.
and I'm like, there's so many series where it's like I just need one more book. Just one more book.
Oh, okay. Okay, then yeah, that's really nice. I like that.
Mhm.
I tend to reread whenever I am like in a rut. That's when I kind of like
Mm.
to go back to something that I've enjoyed, and I'm like, hopefully this will, help me shake it off. But
Gotcha, gotcha. So, Greta, what are you currently reading?
I actually, technically, I just finished it, but it's Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. First of all,
What a title.
can we quickly acknowledge that a new Hunger Games book and a John Green book came out within like the same week, if not the same day of each other, and it instantly took me back to being in like early college, late high school, and I was
Hmm.
like, oh my god, what is happening? But yeah, this is it's nonfiction, and
Okay.
it is very captivating. Yeah, the last couple John Green books, Everything is Tuberculosis is obviously this one, and then the Anthropocene Review have also been nonfiction, and I really like his nonfiction more than his fiction.
Oh.
Yes. It is. There's something about the storytelling and the way that it's structured and the way that it's written. The audiobook is also narrated by him, so it just sounds like a podcast, and it's really, really incredible. This book made me want to go back into like science research. It's
Nice.
so absolutely admirable, the work being done around curing tuberculosis in like third world countries, and it explores a lot of that. It's like literally it's like a history abridged of tuberculosis, and it's really, really interesting. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I think I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads. If you're into like this, might like the title is really maybe off-putting. It might not be for everyone, especially I think a lot of our listeners don't aren't into much into nonfiction. So, but it really is worth checking out. The storytelling in it is captivating all on its own.
Okay. This will surprise you, but I've never read anything from either of the Green brothers.
Wow.
I know, I'm
Okay.
definitely a outlier in that because I feel like so many people have read either a John Green book or a Hank Green book or
Mm-hmm.
have viewed their content like on YouTube or
Mm-hmm.
other social media platforms. Nothing.
Oh
Nothing. Like I
wow.
know who they are, but I've never
Yeah.
consumed anything from them.
Okay. I mean, Hank Green put me through college, so there's that. And John Green, when I say put me through college, I mean his like science YouTube videos helped me a lot. But I've only read a couple things by John Green. I read Paper Towns and The Other Person Review, and then Everything Superfluous. I didn't do a lot of his other, like Looking for Alaska and The Fault in Our Stars. Maybe that was like, or Turtles All the Way Down. I know so many titles, but I haven't read any of those. Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, it might be because they're very young female protagonists, and I maybe don't relate to them as much anymore. That might be why, but. Yeah.
All right. So moving into what we're reading or reviewing this time around. First of all,
Speaking of female protagonists.
We have to give some background context to this because the lead up to this episode has been so chaotic. So
It's been a long time coming.
Let's move the curtain here for y'all who
Yeah.
are listening to this podcast. Okay, so the first thing is that we ended up switching the book. We ended up switching the book for this video. So originally we decided to pick up The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley because we had both read a Lucy Foley book before and had really liked it. So we wanted to pick up another book by the author, and we wanted to do a mystery thriller to switch it up from all the other types of books that we typically review on this podcast. However, Greta started The Paris Apartment, so I will let you take it away there.
Yes. So I did start The Paris Apartment, and keep in mind, this is a book that, okay, I will take full accountability. I suggested this book because in the past I had DNF'd this book. I am notorious for
Why do you recommend books that you previously DNF when I only recommend 5 stars?
Because I would like to finish them. I would like to see if there's something really there. And this is almost like homework, like it's really fun, enjoyable homework that I'm forced to do. So I was like, I might as well, And also we really wanted, like Millie mentioned, we really wanted something that was going to break up what we were reading, because we're about to get into spring, and that means romance book season, and so we just needed something to like split things up for us. So I picked it up again, and I was listening to the audiobook, and at first I was like, okay, like this is fine. Maybe it's just slow to pick up. I get to the 12-minute mark, and I sent Millie a voice message on like my ride home, and essentially I said, Millie, I cannot finish this book. I can actually not listen to it any longer. I'm gonna DNF. We have to switch this book. And then Millie was like, well, no, I didn't suggest switching the book at first. I was like, I really cannot do this book. And then Millie was like, okay. She's like, what's like, is it that bad? And I was like, oh girl, it's bad. There's something about the way that this book is written. Like, I very much understand that it's supposed to be, it's giving like a film noir, where you obviously, it's a very, very large ensemble and you're kind of flipping through all of the characters. But just the way that the book is written, it feels like you're going, each character is like, I am this, and then I did this, and then I saw this, and then I did this, and then I saw this, and then we switch, and then the other character's like, and then I saw this, and then I did this, and then this, and it's all like very observational, and it was just so painful to read. Truly, I could not do it. So then I literally remember like verbatim sending Millie that voicemail, like describing what was going on in the book. And then Millie goes, what can we do? What can we do? What did we switch? What book did we switch to? And I had previously mentioned to Millie that our cousin had like sent me a screenshot of a book, or like had sent me a comment and said, I have, like, this is the first time in a very long time where I have not been able to put a book down and have read it so like fiercely. And I brought that up to Millie. I was like, do we switch it to this? And then Millie was like, we're switching it to this. And we're like, okay, perfect. And then I had to go back and edit the video. last video, but it wasn't too bad. So,
and honestly, it ended up working out perfectly because
yeah.
this is also a mystery thriller, so it's still like in the same realm of what we were expecting to read. It was a recommendation, okay, from someone, and on top of that, we had like a week to read the book before we were set to film, and so we had to just both pray to the Libby gods that both of us could get the book as an
Yeah.
audiobook, and it was available for
Yeah.
both of us
Yeah.
like
We
at
got
the
very
same time.
lucky. Yeah, we
So
got
much
very,
luck.
very lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
this is, oh.
but then on top of that, we were gonna record, and then there were technical issues per se. And we had to
I don't
postpone.
remember what happened.
No. There was the construction outside
Oh
your
my
apartment.
gosh. That's right. Yeah. I was like, I don't remember what happened. There was construction outside of my apartment. Um, and it was so loud. Oh my God. Okay. So last week, I literally had set up like plans to just record everything. I was going to record my podcast, my YouTube videos, and we were going to record the podcast, and I was going to edit, and I was like ready to be locked in. And I wake up to like hammering on the other side of like directly across from my apartment. And I was like, okay, I don't know if this is gonna go away. Like, I don't know how long this is gonna take. I text Millie and I was like, heads up. I think I sent you like a voice memo, and you could just hear the banging. And I was like, okay, maybe this will go away in a little bit. Like, we'll wait off a little bit. And I know that Millie had also set like that time that to record a bunch of other stuff. So but it got like an hour and a half after we were supposed to start, and I was like, okay, this is not happening. There, turns out they were replacing windows, and so I got no work done last week. It was a nightmare.
So we had to change the book last minute. We had to postpone recording this by like an additional week. So that being said, going into this, both Greta and I have read roughly, I would say, like what, 3-4
3 to
other
4
books
more books.
since
Yeah,
we
it's been a
finished this
minute.
book. So we're testing our memories here with this review, because
Yeah.
I mean, it is a pity, because I think that if we had recorded this podcast when we had both just finished this book, it would be a completely different episode than what we're recording right now, because I think some of the excitement from it has died down a little bit. But on the other hand, we're going to go into it with less kind of like fresh bias. And like, now that we've had some time for the book to settle, it's like, okay, what do we actually feel? Because I have a tendency to overrate. Like, I rate high, and then afterwards I'm like, oh wait, simmer down. Let's knock that down a little bit.
Yeah, and my rating kind of changes from the beginning of the podcast to the end of the podcast. But this one going in, I've kind of had time to like I've had time to sit with it, and I've had time to kind of process what happened. And so going into this rating, I was like, oh, okay, nice. And like, I took notes on what I rated this after I finished it. So I was kind of like, okay, yeah. And my feelings still are kind of the same. So I'm very interested to have this discussion. Also because this book is very much like up Millie's alley. It's
Really?
unhinged. I felt like it was unhinged beyond belief.
Yeah, you're right. It is. I was like, it doesn't take place in a wedding. I was like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's unhinged.
Yeah, it's the definition of unhinged. We've been alluding to this for a minute. Today we're going to be reading or talking about None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. This episode is dedicated to Fernie. Hi, Fernie. I hope you're listening. Thank you for this recommendation. Millie, would you like to take it away?
Yes. All right. So we are going to share our thoughts for the first time about how we feel about this book, and we're going to use the Cowpile rating system that was created by G from Book Roast. So it is 7 different categories. You rate them from 1 to 10 and average it out to get your star rating. We have character, atmosphere, writing, plot, intrigue, logic, enjoyment. All right. So without further ado, let's get started. Greta, what did you do for character?
I give characters a 9.
Okay. I gave characters an 8.
Okay.
Okay. We're starting off similar.
Pretty good, yeah.
Okay. Atmosphere, what did you give it?
I give atmosphere an 8.
I gave Atmosphere a 9.
Ooh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, for writing, what did you give it?
I gave writing an 8.
I gave writing an 8.
Okay, I'm getting excited.
Okay, so for plot, what did you give it?
I gave it an 8.
I also gave it an 8.
Okay.
Why are we the same person?
Girl, I tell myself that all the time. When it comes to certain books, I was like, we're literally identical, and it's quite frightening.
Which is funny because I thought you were going to hate this book.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay. Let's keep on
Yeah,
going.
like, okay, so Intrigue, what did you give it?
I give it a 7.
Okay, Intrigue, I gave it a 9.
Okay, yeah, I can see how you could like not put it down. I found myself being able to like step back and then come back, but like take some time from it, like a day of not reading it. Yeah,
No, you could not pry it from my dead cold
I
hands.
could. Well, yeah, you read it in a day.
Pretty much.
It was Friday when you were like, "I'm starting it," and like I kid you not, I feel like I blinked and you were like, "I'm done," and I was like, "What?" It was crazy.
All right, Logic, what did you give it?
I give it a 7.
I also gave it a 7.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Slay.
There were some dumb bitch decisions, so
Yes, there were a lot of dumb bitch decisions.
okay, and last but not least, we have Enjoyment.
I gave it an 8. I give it an 8.
I gave it an 8.
Oh my god!
Wait, so we're like almost the same. So like my star rating is an 8.14, which is a solid 4-star.
Yeah. Mine is a 7. Mine is a 7.8, which is like a low 4-star. But in my rating system, I give it like a 3.5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. I thought it was really fun once you get into it.
Yes, the first like 10-20% are really really slow, but then once like it kicks in, then I feel like the momentum is just snowballing down.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely.
Okay, so before we get into it, just a heads up about content warnings. So this book does include a lot of content warnings. We have domestic violence, alcohol use disorder, physical and sexual abuse, pedophilia, abduction, and murder. So like everything you would find in one episode of Law and Order SVU. Okay. Right now it's currently sitting at a 4.12 current Goodreads rating. I cook every now and then with my one-liners, all right?
You do? How do you feel about the rating?
I feel like the rating fits. When I was looking at the reviews, there's a lot of people who either give this 5 stars or 2 stars. Like people feel very passionate about one way or another.
Okay, I can see that. And now for our Goodreads reading synopsis. Celebrating her 45th birthday at her local pub, popular podcaster Alexis Summers crosses paths with an unassuming woman called Josie Fair. Josie, it turns out, is also celebrating her 45th birthday. They are, in fact, birthday twins. A few days later, Alexis and Josie bump into each other again. A few days later, Alex and Josie bump into each other again, this time outside of Alex's children's school. Josie has been listening to Alex's podcast and thinks she might be an interesting subject for her series. She is, she tells Alex, on the cusp of great change in her life. That sentence is weird. Mm-hmm. Josie's life appears to be strange and complicated, and although Alex finds her unsettling, that is an understatement, she can't quite resist the temptation to keep making the podcast. Slowly, she starts to realize that Josie has been hiding some very dark secrets, and before she knows it, Josie is...
I don't even know what that word is.
Oh my god. I've never seen that word before.
No.
Invigiled?
I'm gonna Google this.
Wow, everybody, take out your dictionaries. Enveigled. This is why I love reading. What is this?
Oh, to persuade.
Inveigled.
Huh.
Huh. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, what does it mean?
persuade through deception
Someone.
or flattery.
Ooh, okay. Huh. Kind of like finagled.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, slowly she starts to realize that Josie has been hiding some very dark secrets, and before she knows it, Josie has inveigled her way into Alex's life, and into her home. But as quickly as she arrived, Josie disappears. Only only then does Alex discover that Josie has left a terrible and terrifying legacy in her wake, and that Alex has become the subject of her own true crime podcast with her life and her family's life under mortal threat. Who is Josie Fair, and what has she done?
Dun dun dun.
Done. Okay, so I think before we start, we should point out that how this book is formatted. Yeah.
Okay, so it's mixed media, and so
Mhm.
it includes like your standard narrative storytelling, plus it has excerpts of the podcast episodes themselves, and it also includes flash forwards of other people that are like loosely tied and connected to our main protagonist that are being interviewed for a future Netflix documentary that is being done based off this podcast.
Yes. We both listened to it on audiobook, and wow, on audiobook is it very, very captivating. The
Mhm.
audiobook budget for this book was very high. It was a very high budget. It was really good production. I liked it.
Mhm.
That was fun.
All right, so let's get into it. We'll talk about the first part and then gauge our initial feelings. All right, when Josie Fair steps out of her comfort zone to celebrate her 45th birthday in a popular local pub, she meets Alex Summer, her birthday twin, who is celebrating her own 45th birthday as well. Although they are from the same neighborhood, Josie and Alex's lives are very different. Josie lives with her husband, Walter, and her daughter, Erin, in a small apartment overlooking a bus stop. Her older daughter, Roxy, has long since left her family home. Alex lives with her husband, Nathan, and their two children, Eliza and Leon, in a spacious, elegant home just blocks away. Alex, a well known podcaster, attracts Josie's attention. Josie is looking for a change in her life, so she approaches Alex to propose that they do a podcast together documenting her big life changes as she implements them, along with her account of her past history. Despite some reservations, Alex agrees, and they embark on the project in Alex's home recording studio. As the interviews progress, however, Alex learns some shocking truths about Josie's lives. Josie met her husband when she was only 13 and married him when she was 18, and he was 43. Let's let that sink in for a sec. Ew.
Mm,
Their
mm.
eldest daughter, Roxy, ran away, and their youngest, Erin, never steps out of her bedroom and eats only baby food. Josie believes that Walter has been abusing Erin for nearly 6 years, but never confronts the problem, instead, putting in earplugs when he leaves her bed every night. Okay, so we've been introduced to Josie and Alex, and the POV switches back and forth between the two. So they're
Yeah.
both like the main protagonist, but Alex is like a little bit more of the main protagonist.
Yeah.
How do we feel? How do we feel about Alex and Josie?
Okay. The fact that you said you feel like Alex is more of the main protagonist, I thought Josie was the main protagonist.
For me, it's because Alex is like us, the reader.
The one
We don't
recording
know.
the podcast. Yeah.
Right, like we don't know anything about this going into it. Josie's the one who's holding all the answers. And so we're following the story through Alex's lens. And so for
I
us, I feel like
see. I
she's like
see.
the one that's like Josie is propelling all of the action,
Mm-hmm.
but Alex is the one that's following all of the breadcrumbs.
Okay, I like that. Okay, WTF? What the heck were we recommended to read? That was my first. That was my first. Like I was okay. So it is a very slow to start book, in my opinion. It is very, very slow. up until they get into the recording studio. Then things start to kind of like speed up. And it feels a little bit of like shock factor after shock factor after shock factor. And also, Josie is an absolutely insufferable character. I despise this character so much. And it's like a train wreck where I couldn't look away from what was happening. So up until now, I was kind of like hesitant. I was like, what are we getting into? What is this going to be? And then it's revealed that Josie, went 18 and 43. And I was like, oh, is this going to be, commentary on pedophilia? Is that what this is going to be? And then we get like, is this going to be like an abused dynamic, And I was like, okay, well, I guess this is what we're reading. And then we get a little bit more input. And then it's like Roxy's daughters, and now there's something wrong with them. So I was like, okay, is this child abuse? And then I was like, oh, is this SA child abuse? It was just a lot. It was a lot. And I was okay, I found myself being so scared of how this book was going to handle these topics, because these are very, 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 very strong topics. And I was just concerned about how the author was going to, like whether they were going to justify these actions, because it felt like you were going that way for a while, and it was just like a lot. It was a lot. So I was on pins and needles the entire time, not just because of the book and like getting breadcrumbed, but also just how the author was going to like address these things. And it was a lot. I'm getting chills just like rethinking about it.
Okay, so for me, I was really confused, like based on the synopsis. Like I was just confused.
Okay.
I was confused about what the premise for this is, like what the setup was. I was so confused about the whole birthday twin thing. And like honestly, it really has nothing to do with the story. Like it was just a way to like open the door to get you in.
Yeah.
And you know what? I was watching a reviewer, like a booktuber that I really like, and she was reading this book, and she hated the book, by the way. So
Okay.
it's really interesting to watch her read it and her review it. Because a really interesting one that she came up with was that she thought initially that the whole birthday twin thing was going to be a situation where it's like, oh, Josie and Alex were accidentally switched at birth, and like Josie realized it, and like Alex has her life that she always wanted, and like now
I
Josie's
see.
like getting her revenge kind of deal. I was like, oh, that would
Okay.
have been such an interesting premise.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit confused with the whole birthday twin, and honestly,
Mhm.
it was a very like thin excuse for Josie to insert herself in Alex's life, because
Mhm.
Josie had an agenda the entire time. Like she knew what
Okay.
she was gonna do. She knew kind of like what she was getting at, and she was just using it as a way to get into Alex's sphere, because they were total
Mhm.
strangers,
Mhm.
and there had to be
Mhm.
a way for them to
Definitely.
connect.
Mhm.
And then like the first part of it, I was definitely like feeling kind of sluggish, because it was just
Mhm.
the women getting to know each other, getting to like set up the logistics of the podcast, and they're awkward with each other naturally because they're strangers. But then once they sit down and actually start recording some of the podcasts, and Josie starts to unveil a bunch of shocking things, I was just like, where is this book going? And I started like already theorizing. I'm like, okay, who's gonna die? Who's gonna die? Like how are they gonna die? Like how is this gonna go? So I started getting hooked.
Definitely. Definitely. Um, the regarding the birthday twin idea, to me, it kind of just felt like it was supposed to parallel them, and it was supposed to be like, obviously like two different people. At first, I did also think, is this going to be a switched at birth thing? Especially when they mentioned they were both born in the same hospital. I was like, interesting. Okay, are we going to go down that path? But to me, towards like after that kind of like that hunch went away, it felt like a way to like parallel these two characters and kind of compare them to each other, just because of like life circumstances or whatever. It was a very just like thinly veiled excuse for Josie to approach Alex. But also a bit of a creepy way to approach someone, because Alex is described as being this like has like, so they're at this pub, right? And Alex is like surrounded by friends, and she's got balloons, and it's like a party of 30 or something like that. And Josie's by herself and her husband, and you know, Alex is like being celebrated very like vivaciously and colorfully. Like it's night and day. So it felt, and then Josie just kind of comes up to her in the bathroom and is like, "You're my birthday twin." It was creepy. It was creepy, and it was yeah. So to me, that birthday twin idea, like after a while, I was like, okay, we're just meant to like compare and contrast these characters to each other. But then it changes, it pivots, right? Because then Alex um, becomes like kind of like it starts like really investigating. At first, the book is very much like, look how different these two people are, and look like their lives are different, but they're coming together and they're having this project together. But then it switches where Alex is kind of like unraveling a mystery, and Josie is kind of driving a ship, and it's a very scary ship.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay, so now for part two. As Josie's confessions continue, Alex grows more uneasy with the situation. Beyond the details of Josie's life, she is insinuating herself into Alex's own life. But Alex is determined to finish the podcast, which is shaping up to be both explosive and important. When Josie visits Alex's house for an interview, she often takes small items from Alex's life, a teapot, a bracelet, a drawing, and hides it in her underwear drawer when she gets home. When Josie and Walter have a dinner at Alex's house, the situation comes to a head. Nathan, Alex's husband, who stays out drinking with friends, he has been dealing with an alcohol addiction, an issue that Alex has shared with Josie. Josie is angry about the ruined dinner party, and when she gets home that night, decides it is time for a change. Several hours later, she appears at Alex's doorstep, badly beaten, and claims that Walter, upset about the dinner party, has taken his frustrations out on her and Aaron. She claims that Aaron went to a friend's house, and now Josie is relying on Alex to take her in. Okay, so this is when things get absolutely batshit crazy. Yeah.
Okay, so it goes from like them being strangers to acquaintances who are working on this project together to Josie opening up more and more and like specifically manipulating the situation to just end up in spaces where Alex is. Like she is inserting herself in Alex's life. She is trying to befriend her, and you're very kind of it's very unclear if she is trying to like insert herself in place of Alex, if she's trying to be Alex, if she's trying to take Alex away from everything to have her for herself. But there's like an obsession that is starting to formulate. Like she's stealing things from
Definitely.
Alex's house
Mm-hmm.
and just being like
Yeah.
very creepy about it.
Yeah. This is also when we start to get the commentary about the husband in the situation. So Nathan is Alex's husband. And um after like a birthday party or something, like an initial, yeah, after Alex's original, like her first birthday party, he goes out drinking and he doesn't come back until like the next day or something like that. And Alex has mentioned this to Josie, and Josie's just like, ugh, men. And Josie keeps on paralleling Walter to Nathan, and every single time she does this, she's kind of like equating Joe, like her struggles and her abuse to Alex, and like to Alex's to what she feels is Alex's abuse, like her husband not being home. And not to diminish that at all, but those two things are very different, and it's very obvious that it makes Alex incredibly uncomfortable. And that is almost, it's palpable how uncomfortable Alex is in a lot of the cases. If you have ever had an unwanted guest at your house and they just don't seem to leave, and you've ever like had someone, you know, compare their struggles, and you're like, well, my issue's like not that serious. Like I could feel Alex's anxiety throughout this section, and I think that was incredibly captivating.
So what I find interesting, because we have this like just juxtaposition of both of their
Mm-hmm.
POVs, both of them, okay, objectively have very terrible husbands. Okay.
Yeah.
They are acting in ways that are extremely not okay to
Mm-hmm.
various degrees. But what's really interesting is that both women know that like their husband is not perfect, but they know that the other woman's husband is also not perfect. But in both of their POVs, they're just like, oh, well, my husband isn't that great, but he's not her husband. Like, he's not acting
Mm-hmm.
like her.
Mm-hmm.
Because for
Mm-hmm.
Alex, it's just like, okay, yeah, my husband is going on benders and getting blacked out drunk and like staying
Mm-hmm.
out all night,
Mm-hmm.
and like missing important things and making me look bad. But like, he didn't groom me when I was like a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the flip side, Josie's just like okay, well, like my husband, acted inappropriate with me with the whole age gap thing, but like he was there for our children and he was like a great father figure to them and he was always there to help raise them and take care of them, unlike Alex's husband, who's just going out partying with who knows what, like who knows who, doing who knows
Yeah.
what, like all of that.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're both
Yeah.
like judging each other so intently, which I found
Yeah.
really interesting here. And
Yeah.
then also we get the whole like I guess like climax pivotal moment, I think, of the book, which is Josie comes home. She's pissed at Walter because she's like, Walter embarrassed me, okay, at this dinner party that Nathan didn't even show up to because we all knew he was going to go have a bender, right?
Yeah.
And then it kind of fades to black and you know that Josie is just like unbelievably pissed and that Josie and Walter are starting to like go head to head with each other, but we don't know what happens after that. And then we
Mm-hmm.
just like cut to scene of Josie showing up to Alex's house and she's like clearly been in a physical fight and she's just like, Walter came at me, he attacked me, I left the house, and Alex takes her in. But from here on out, everything starts to get even more twisted because we start to realize that Josie Josie's version of the events are very different to reality's version of the events. And now, as the reader, we know we have an unreliable narrator, and we're just like, what actually happened here? Because we're getting like contradictory things, and it gets like convoluted, and I love it.
Also, the way that Josie is going about it. So Alex is like, well, we should call the police. Like, we should call the authorities. I can get you. Like, Alex has connections in like women help centers, and then Josie's like, no. Oh my God! Don't call the police. Don't do that. And then Alex is like, well, where's your daughter? And Josie's like, I don't know. She went off with a friend, but she's fine. Like, she's fine. And then she's like the way that Josie is acting is
Mm-hmm.
should be giving Alex insane red flags, but Alex is like, okay, like just going along with it. And a lot of it is because Alex just wants to like finish this goddamn podcast. And it's like, girl, just end. I wanted to scream at Alex so many times, just drop this project. It is not that serious. Oh my God. That was
I
so
mean,
annoying.
okay, as a recovering people pleaser, I understand where Alex is coming from because she
Okay.
doesn't want to rock the boat. She wants to like she doesn't want to seem as someone who like doesn't believe her, like doesn't believe in this victim, that isn't like a supportive like girl's girl. Like she wants to help, and not Alex, Josie pushes the line in a very discreet way at the beginning,
Yeah.
and because Alex kept giving in to like the really like nonchalant little things, it then snowballed, it spiraled into Josie being able to take more and more and more, and Alex feeling less and less like she can advocate for herself. It was very well done.
Yeah, and then I mean that also goes kind of to show with the things that Josie's stealing from Alex. At first, it's just like small things, like what it was like a teaspoon, and then it was like a very fancy bracelet, and then it was like a drawing that was on her fridge, and shortly you will see that Josie starts taking things from the house that Alex is in, and it's just blatant theft, and it is insane.
All right, so moving on. For a week, Josie stays with Alex, becoming increasingly comfortable wearing her clothes and exploring her home. They continue the podcast interviews, even delving into the disappearance of Brooke Ripley, who was Roxy's first girlfriend. As Alex becomes increasingly suspicious of Josie, Josie collects things from Nathan's pockets and uses them to create the suspicion of infidelity in Alex's mind. When Josie finally leaves and Alex's sisters arrive for a visit, she thinks that Josie's influence in her life is over. That night, however, Nathan disappears. He was last seen getting into a car rented with Aaron Fair's credit card. Aaron, remember, is one of Josie's daughters. Alex understands that Josie has kidnapped Nathan, and the search for them begins. Police break into Josie's apartment and find Walter beaten and dead in the bathtub, and Aaron also badly beaten and comatose, tied to a chair. Okay, so what do we think about this whole Josie staying with Alex, Josie moving in the shadows, the whole setting up Nathan, and then
Oh
finally
my
figuring
god.
out what happened that night?
Okay, there were a couple interactions between Josie and Nathan that were literally bone chilling. Like the way that Josie acts with Nathan, she is so like bold and so matter of fact, and so like, you're a really bad husband and you should do better, and you're the reason why my husband beat me. Like, it's crazy the things she is telling Nathan, and Nathan is like, okay, you're insane, and then just like goes on his merry way. And then the way that she like acts with Josie is different. She's very much like a victim when she's with Josie. Um, the whole her clothing had been cleaned, but she was still wearing Josie's clothing every day is insane. Her doing her makeup and getting ready with things that she has blatantly stolen from Josie while they're from Alex while she's in the house is crazy. Um, the fact that Alex steps out of the house a few times and leaves her kids alone with Josie is crazy. Um, Literally, what? This whole kind of like, you were just like, okay, it's like it's slowly, things are. Oh my god, this is when I was like, I could not put the book down. Again, I'm getting chills just because of how like creepy and eerie, and something's gonna happen, but you don't know what it is, and Josie's gonna do something, but you don't really know what Josie's intentions are. Even at this point, I could not figure out what Josie wanted from Alex. Honestly, at the end of the book, I still don't know what Josie wants from Alex, and Josie's like family dynamics are still incredibly hazy to me. So, what was your head at? What are you thinking?
Yeah, so at this entire time, I feel like that's where we both kind of like started getting some logic points deducted from the
Yeah.
book, because at this point, like, Josie's contradicting herself, right? And Alex keeps like trying to subtly be like, "Hey Josie, like, why don't you tell me more about what happened that night?" And is trying to get like more details and information from her. And one of the big things is that Alex is like, "Well, what happened to Erin?" And Josie's like, "Oh, well, she's staying with a friend." And she's like, "But didn't you say that like your husband was beating on you, like, and you left? Like, did Erin leave before that or after that? Did you leave like her alone with your husband?" And she's like, "No, we both left together." And it's like, "Okay, well then how do you not know where she is?" And she's like, "Oh, well, we both left the house and then we both went like down opposite streets, so she just like walked away from me." And she's like, "So you let your daughter, who just witnessed this abusive incident, just walk away from you, and you don't know where she went?"
And she only eats baby food?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's just like, and the entire time that Josie is staying with Alex, Josie's like, has like not a care in the world, is like a vacation for her. And the entire time Alex is like, "But you don't know where your daughter is. Like, how can you not be worried that you don't know where your daughter is?" And then like the more Alex investigates, the timeline doesn't match of when Josie says this incident happened versus when Josie showed up to Alex's doorstep. And
Mm-hmm.
so Alex is getting more and more suspicious. But instead of like acting on the suspicion, which clearly is indicating, right, that there like something more nefarious is going on, she's just like, "Okay, well, like, once I get her to reveal the truth on the podcast, like, then I'll bring the cops in." Like, I think that was her mindset behind it. But yeah, she prolonged getting Josie out of her house, and she tried. She tried very hard to get Josie out of her house, and Josie was just like using every excuse in the book to try to stay. But ultimately, it was because Alex just like didn't put her foot down and just kicked Josie out of her house.
Yeah, it was a very awkward situation. There was a point where Josie like finds so Alex's family was coming over to like stay with them, and Josie finds a like pull out couch. And she was like, "Well, I can just stay on the pull out couch." And then Alex is like, "Actually, all of my all of my sisters are coming and all of their kids, so we will need all this space." And Josie was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I guess that's true." And like she confirms it by checking like calendar, and it's so creepy and eerie, and I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. I hate unwanted guests. And I hate unwanted guests who have no decorum and they don't know when it's time to go. And so this was my worst case scenario. This was like a personal nightmare.
And then what's even creepier is when the day that Josie does actually leave, and she leaves willingly. Like, she's not trying to find an excuse, and it's because she's been moving in the shadows. She's been framing Nathan because she found cocaine like in his like jacket pocket. And so he had hidden it, and so she brings it out and puts it, like, rehides it again so it's easier for Alex to find, and basically sets up this whole entire thing for Nathan to disappear. And you know that she's behind it because it's very obvious she's behind it. And then
it's awful.
how did you feel when the police finally broke into Josie's apartment like a little bit over a week later and found Walter and Aaron?
Okay, so here's the thing. Alex steps out, and like there's a moment where Alex is like, I need to go to Josie's apartment. Like, I need to see what's going on there, you know? I need to see if Walter's okay. And she like goes but doesn't really follow through with the plan. She kind of just like inspects from afar, and I was like, that is insane. That is the first thing I would do. Like, once, you know, Josie's settled, I would be like, okay, well, Josie clearly like doesn't want to seek help. She doesn't want to reach out to Walter. She doesn't know where her daughter is. She doesn't care where her daughter is. She's just going about the day like la-di-da. I was like, okay, honestly, if that was me, I would be like, no, I'm taking things into my like own hands. I'm gonna go, you know, I have to drop the kids off. We need to go to like a birthday party or whatever. Take the kids with me. Kids, stay in the car. I need to go peek through fucking windows. Like, that's crazy for her to like not take more action and not take more authority in this situation. Which again was when I was like, Alex, you need to like drop this podcast thing. It's not worth it. Like, clearly you have a bad feeling. Trust the gut feeling. Okay, when the cops break in, I was so confused as to what, like I said, I'm still incredibly confused as to what is actually going on in Josie's family, but I think that's like on purpose.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's still like very, very hazy because, okay, Walter's been confirmed that he's dead, which I had a feeling. But in my mind, I thought that Walter and Aaron were dead. So the fact that Aaron was still alive, I was just like, oh, I didn't see that coming. And so basically, but Erin was like barely alive. She was in a coma, and she had been left tied to a chair to like starve for the entire week in that apartment, and is somehow still alive by like the grace of God.
No, it's kind of insane. That part was a little bit crazy. Also, with the whole Erin thing, you would get like Josie would mention like creaking of chairs and like walking by Aaron's room. I could have swore Aaron was like dead to begin with. Yeah. And like Josie would mention like leaving food outside of Aaron's door. Like, that whole thing with Aaron, I am so confused and like off put by, and I don't know how to make heads or tails of it still. And I have finished the book. So, yeah.
Okay. So before we go into revealing the whole thing with Roxy, what did you think was going on with Roxy, the older daughter that disappeared?
Honestly, I had no idea. I feel like she just got tired of her parents' shit and ran away. Like, obviously, from what you know, like, this clearly wasn't like a healthy family dynamic. This wasn't like a healthy household. So that was just my impression. Or she died. Like, that, I was like, either she ran away or she died, and both of her kids are dead. That was where I was thinking. What about you?
Yeah. So at first, before I kind of was gauging what the story is about, I thought that like Roxy had ran away because of like Walter abusing Josie and therefore then starting to abuse the girls. And so I thought that like Walter had started to abuse Roxy, and then when Roxy was like, F this, I'm leaving, then Walter turned his attentions to Erin, who is like the next daughter. And so I thought that personally for me, I thought that this whole story was going to be this giant like expose on grooming and sexual assault. And that Josie, was the victim through all of this, but that she was going to like finally snap and like kill everybody, but that you would sympathize with her through everything that she's been through. But then as the story progresses, you're just like, oh no, that was just Josie's facade in the beginning of this. She's playing the victim, all that stuff. And so I was just like, once I realized that like Josie was no longer reliable, I was like, oh, Roxy's dead. Then that means that Roxy's dead, and they're just like pretending that she ran away. But then let's see what happens, because we figure out. All right. So moving on to the last part of this book, Roxy, who is alive, returns home to look after Erin. When Erin comes out of her coma, she says that Josie committed the crimes. Together, they tell Alex that Walter hasn't been abusing Erin. Erin is a famous gamer, and Walter had taken part in her gaming streams every night, helping her to monetize them so that she could gain independence and move out of the apartment. Erin also tells her that Josie killed Brooke. So Brooke was the girl from like, I want to say like 10 years prior.
Yeah, like high school.
And the police later find Brooke's body hidden in the Ferris's garage. The police finally discover where Josie was holding Nathan, but it's too late and he's dead. Alex receives a text message from Josie, who claims that Nathan's death was an accident and that she only meant to hold him so that Alex could experience the freedom of life without him. She also sends a vaguely threatening letter, but Alex never hears from her after that. Over a year later, Josie's on the bus when she hears two women talking about the Netflix documentary based on Alex's podcast of her story. She remembers the night of Brooke's death and recalls how Roxy accidentally killed Brooke and the family colluded to hide the body. She holds on to the belief that no matter what else happened, she was a good mother. Okay, we have a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
The first thing being that the ending is an open ending, okay? We don't know if Josie ever gets caught. And I feel like that kind of mirrors the podcast, because Alex eventually closes off the podcast and it's kind of left open, unconcluded for the viewers. And that also reflects the experience for the reader, because we never really find closure with everything that happens. And based on the title of this book, none of this is true. Everything is open to interpretation, and we're getting so many different variations of the story about what actually happened. Who killed Brooke? Who was Brooke to Roxy? What actually happened to Erin? What were Walter's intentions? Like, how did Nathan actually die? Like, everything is still kind of open-ended, and it's up to you as the reader to make your judgment and interpret how you may.
Which is absolutely horrendous behavior, in my humble opinion. Okay, so a little bit on, again, I'm so sorry, commentary on what this book was trying to, say. Because that's, okay. Okay, forgive me, as a literary fiction reader, I'm always looking at books that's like, what are you trying to tell me? What is the message that you're trying to deliver? And like, what moral query are you trying to like unravel with this story? Like you mentioned, at first I thought this was going to be a story about surviving domestic abuse and, Josie coming out from it and like her like snapping, and then her actions being, as a reader, you like, they're vindicated or they're justified because of her past. So at first I thought that's what we were going down, and I was like, I support women's rights and their wrongs, whatever, it's fine. But there's a moment where Walter's actions start to be justified, and Walter is kind of talking to Alex and is like, don't believe Josie. Josie is the abusive one. Josie has been lying to you the entire time. So then you're kind of like, am I supposed to find like, am I supposed to think of Walter as the victim? This man who was 34 or whatever with 19 or
43.
sorry, 43 with 18-year-old Josie, like who so as you know, from like how I view books, I'm trying to understand like who am I supposed to be cheering for? Who is the real, like, who, especially in like Josie's side of the story, who are the real victims? And how is the author like telling this story? And are they just, whose actions are they justifying? So this entire like section of my thought process is so fuzzy. And that's the part where I don't like, because I'm like, okay, so Josie clearly is abusive and manipulative and a bit of a narcissist, while at the same time, Josie is also a victim of grooming and also like has potentially never received any kind of like mental health like mental health care. So, and then Walter is simultaneously a victim of manipulation because Walter was dating Josie's mom,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, Walter was dating Josie's mom, and Josie kind of like stole him away. I say with air quotes, because how does a child do that? While also being a pretty good father to his daughters. It's very confusing, and that this part was so jarring to me, where I didn't know how to like morally approach it. Does that make sense? Did any of that make sense to you?
100%. I agree with everything that you just said.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
I felt the
Because
same way. Because okay,
was,
so I think here's where the problem lies, because I also had the same dilemma where it felt like there was like this 180 like flip in
mm-hmm,
terms of like who we're supposed to root for and what values
mm-hmm,
we're supposed to see as acceptable or despicable. Because
mm-hmm,
initially, right, we see everything from Josie and Alex's lens. Okay, so
mm-hmm,
Josie has been the victim of grooming, which is, undeniable. Like, the facts are the facts. There was a significant age gap. She was a child, he was a
mm-hmm.
grown adult. He was a married grown
Grown
adult. He had
adult.
his
Yeah.
own children, okay?
Mm-hmm,
So there's that, right? And so we're, as the reader, we're supposed to understand that is not okay. Okay. And then on the flip side, we have Alex and Nathan's relationship. Nathan is out drinking, getting passed out, and that is, abusive is not the correct word, but he has his own addiction problems that is leading to an unhealthy relationship that could easily
mm-hmm,
spiral into abuse.
mm-hmm,
Okay.
mm-hmm,
And so we're on the side of the women, and viewing the men and their actions is like horrendous. Okay. But then the author like flips the script in the last 20% of the book, where Josie is now viewed as like this evil witch who's been the master manipulator behind everything, who has been
mm-hmm,
abusing every member in her family in the
mm-hmm,
most like atrocious ways. And then also we have Alex, who is now like grieving Nathan's passing, who she was rightfully pissed at him. She was like a couple steps away from divorcing him, in my
mm-hmm.
opinion, because of everything that was going on and how badly he was spiraling. And then Alex is like, well, I forgive him because he had some past traumas in his life which led to the addiction abuse. And like, he didn't mean it. He just didn't know how to deal with his feelings, which that is acceptable. And my tone makes it seem like it's not. But
But it's
for
not a justification.
exactly, for like the
Yeah.
author to flip the script on
Mm-hmm.
everything at the last minute, I'm kind of like, so what are we supposed to believe? That like it's okay for Josie to do the things that she did because she was groomed, or like is it actually her fault because she was groomed? And like, is now Nathan completely forgiven because he died? Like, it felt contradictory. I didn't know how to feel. I felt like it just added to the confusion. But while the hazy details about what happened to Josie's family were intentional, I feel like this part was not intentional. And this was just
Mm-hmm.
a bad call on the author's part.
I see. I see what you mean. Yeah, I can definitely see that being the case because at the end, at the very, very end of the book, we get a bit of like an epilogue, and it's Roxy and Aaron, and Aaron is grieving her father, and Roxy is honestly a bit of an awful person as well.
So like it's interesting because now we get the perspective from the two daughters who are just like, no, our
Mm-hmm.
mother was terrible to us our whole life. Like our
Mm-hmm.
father loved and cared for us, and our mother was the one who like couldn't stand him giving anybody else attention that wasn't
Mm-hmm.
her.
Mm-hmm.
And that and then like also Josie's mother comes into like an interview and was just like, oh yeah, like Walter was married and then I was having an affair with him, and then
Mm-hmm.
Josie saw that Walter and I were having an affair, and then Josie was jealous, and so she stole Walter away from me. This 15-year-old girl stole this like 30-year-old man away from her, and then like they ended up together. And
Mm-hmm.
so you're it's painting the picture that like Josie can't handle not having the attention, and then when Walter was giving the attention to their biological daughters, she just was jealous and couldn't handle it. um which I mean I can see that, I can see that based on like how things were going. In terms of like what I believe actually happens, I do believe Aaron and Roxy's um descriptions of what happened, but I feel
Okay.
like they also have some bias going into it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's
Uh,
weird, it's so much, it's like a lot.
yeah, like morally, it's a lot to kind of untangle. Um, like you mentioned, it does feel like Josie's side of things are supposed to stay a little bit gray and a little bit like chaotic, just because of that's like kind of the family dynamic that is played out. With Alex's side of the family, Alex's family is very like tight and orderly. Alex's family almost gives the Von Trumps, whatever, from Sound of Music. You know,
Hmm.
like the kids are like very like happy-go-lucky, and they go to a private school, and everyone's kind of buttoned up, and she has this very much like Instagram life. You know, with the unfortunate truth that her husband is struggles with alcoholism and will go out on these benders and doesn't really know how to address his like previous abuse and like personal turmoil. um and Josie exploits that to the nth degree. It's quite it almost feels like Josie's trying to show Alex like get like show Alex. Well, yeah, Josie is trying to show Alex, like, look at how awful your husband is. Look at how awful and abusive your husband is. You should be just as mad and just as angry, and you should be just as beat down as Josie comes off as being. And that like cut and dry. Okay, that's bad. Like like what's happening in Alex's life is like it's horrible to a different degree. Um, but the ending where what is his name? Nathan is out with his friends, and
Hmm.
um, Alex calls Nathan's friends, and his friends are like, no, well, he was saying that he there was like a girl that was flirting with him, but he kept on saying that he needs to come home to his wife and that he loves his wife and da da da, like wife guy, and even the girl that was kind of helping Josie, seduce Nathan was also like, he loved you fiercely and he, just cared about you and the kids so much. And you're just kind of like, okay, what's going on?
Like,
So
why are we trying to redeem Nathan at like the
just
ninth inning here? Like,
yeah. Also, this last chunk happens within like the last 10 minutes of the book.
it's
So
whiplash.
it's insane. We go from like this build up to Aaron, no, sorry, this build up to like Josie leaving the house and then planting the cocaine and planting like the phone number to Nathan is dead, and now Alex is going on like like CSI, like hunt for her husband and looking through film footage. And all of this is like 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes. Like, it's crazy how fast we just like divert. So the ending did feel a little bit rushed to me. Yeah. So that's just kind of like my feelings towards the book. It was this last part I felt like was not that strong.
You can tell by the fact that the first 3 parts of this book that we were talking about, our thought process was so clear and concise, and we're both like with the last part. We're just like kind of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
there's just so many pieces, and it's so confusing, and it's like the
Yeah.
puzzle is blurry.
Yeah, I called Millie after I finished the book, and I was like, girl, what is going on? I was so just like confused by what I was supposed to be feeling. And then I remember I even asked, I was like, is there a second book? Is there something else to like continue? And she was like, no, this is it. And I was like, the cliffhanger of a century, where you're left with Roxy and Aaron just being like, we shouldn't have talked to Netflix. And then Roxy's like, we did what we had to do. And Aaron's like, okay. And then Roxy's like, eat your peas. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. And like, okay, like an adult or a like high school age individual eating baby food is a sign of child abuse. It's a sign of neglect, right? It's like a coping mechanism. But that never really happened in a way, or like it happened via Josie, not via Walter, which is like who we were assuming it to come from. There's a lot. There's a lot. And I just could not process what was going on.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm happy we both feel this. Okay, I'm happy we'll feel the same way about the ending.
Yeah.
There's a lot of details.
So what are your final thoughts on this book? Like, why did you decide through all of this that you're like, it's a 3.5 or a 4? And do you still feel the same way?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a 3.5. I'm going to put it as a 3, I think, in Goodreads. Again, I feel like if you're, this is your genre, if this is your genre, if you're like, I love mystery thrillers, then you are genuinely probably going to like this, because it checks off all of the true crime boxes, you know? But if you're like me, who comes from more of like a literary analysis kind of space, where you look at a book and you're like, what are you trying to tell me about humanity? What are the goods? What are the bads? Who am I rooting for? This is so like fuzzy and so vague that it might leave you feeling a little bit unfulfilled, although there are parts of the book that will literally make your skin crawl. Like, the anxiety bits of me were just like firing to the nth degree. Like, everything was just, oh my god, it was so creepy and so eerie and so convoluted, and you were just kind of screaming at Alex, like, stop, this podcast is not that serious, queen. Like, it's really not that serious. Just go on with your fucking life. And Josie is just such a creepy, uneasy, unsettling character. So those aspects were great. The characters, I think, are great. But it didn't really fulfill what I look for in books, I guess. All in all, it was 3. It was good. I enjoyed it the same way I would enjoy like a true crime documentary, where I feel kind of shitty at the end for watching it, and for being so like can't look away from the screen because there were actual victims, but it was still like interesting, I guess. What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I think for me, the reason why I would rate it like as a 4 is simply because I think that in terms of entertainment value with this book, like, I could not put this book down. The atmosphere was so good. The writing was done in a way that it was very suspenseful. The momentum was building. It was very well crafted in that regard. You got the creepy factor. Okay. You got the obsessive factor about it. I also thought that as unlikable as all the characters were, they were done well in terms of characters that were written to be entertaining in that regards.
Yeah.
the little pieces were there. There was just enough confusion for you to like second guess yourself of like what reality actually is. So in that regards, I do think that the author did a good job. I think she did kind of fumble the ball at the end where she had all of this buildup and just kind of like whiplash everything all at once at the end and made it too confusing and then contradicted herself way too much. So she kind of lost me there at the end. I actually think the reverse of you, where I wouldn't recommend this to hardcore mystery thriller fans.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I would recommend it to beginners like us, like beginners
Oh,
into the genre,
interesting. Okay.
because I noticed that a lot of the people who were reviewing, it seemed like the ones who rated it high were ones who didn't often read mystery thrillers, and the ones that were reviewing it really
Interesting.
lowly are like hardcore fans of the genre.
Huh, that is interesting. Okay, well, what is your take on that? Because you read a lot of like this kind of whodunit and
But I read like cozy murder mysteries, and I think
okay, okay.
I think the thing with the mystery genre, which is really interesting, is that a lot of what makes a good mystery book is
Mhm.
how unpredictable it is. So if you, who's been an avid
Oh,
mystery reader, can tell what the plot is, can tell where the plot twists are, can tell the who done it, right? Then the book isn't good because it was too easy, right?
got it,
And the
got it.
ones that are more like complicated, those ones I guess like are newer and fresher and more interesting for like hardcore mystery readers. So in
Okay,
that regards, I think that this one might have been a little bit too easy level
got
for
it.
mystery
Okay.
thriller fans, but
Mhm.
it's a good one for beginners.
Okay. Okay, I can see that. All right, so viewers, if you are an avid mystery reader, what are your thoughts on the book? I want to know. I want to know what you deem to be a good mystery versus what you think is like so easy. Was the should we have gone with the Paris apartment?
No, no, I'm still
The
so glad
ratings
we
of that
read this
one.
one
Yeah,
over the
me
Paris
too.
apartment.
I'm really happy we read this. It was really interesting. It was really definitely captivating.
Mhm.
But okay, Millie, we are pivoting once again. I'm telling you, this is how I am avoiding getting into a reading slump.
Mhm.
Is our insane schedule this year.
Yeah, honestly, it works. It
What is
does.
what is next for us?
Next is one of my most anticipated releases of 2025, and that is Say You'll
Hmm.
Remember Me by Abby Jimenez.
Hmm. So I have already finished this one.
I'm about to start it tomorrow.
Okay, I listened to it in audiobook and I got it done in a day.
I know, and that, okay, I'm not going to look at you. I'm not going to look at you in the screen.
Okay.
Okay, so for me, the fact that you got it done in a day is, for me, I'm viewing it that as a positive thing. That, like, the book was so good you couldn't put it down. Like, that's what I'm interpreting. Okay, so because I'm going into it being like Abby Jimenez is a 5-star author, and I'm expecting nothing less but a 5-star. So that's the mindset I'm going into.
Okay. I'm happy you looked away. No, not for any reason, not for any one way or another. Not for any one way or another. I think I did text you when I was reading it, and I was like, "This is for you." Like, this is for you. I think I did text you that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But then, what are we reading after that? We're
So
taking
after
another.
that, we are then pivoting once again, and we're doing
Yes.
a sci-fi, a lesbian sci-fi novella, which is
Mhm.
This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El Mator and Max Gladstone.
Very exciting. We have a lot of really interesting stuff coming up, but that is this is like a slow creep into the full romance back to back to back because
Mm-hmm.
we also have Emily Henry's release coming out soon, and Lord knows that the stakes are high and I am nervous.
I am scared.
It does feel like it's a very long time since we've read an Emily Henry, does it not? Even though it was last year.
It's because we forgot Funny Story existed.
Period.
Because I'm gonna tell you right now that the last Emily Henry book you were thinking of was Happy Place. Called it.
Well, yes. That's awful. Oh my god. That's crazy. Okay.
I gave Funny Story a 5-star, and I still forgot I read that book.
Yeah, because it's. Oh no! I can't wait. I can't wait for the next episode, and then I can't wait for the because those are just like such. We just have so much like knowledge when it comes to romance that I really feel like we can talk like authorities on the subject. I'm just delusional.
Experts here. Okay.
Oh my god! All right, everybody. Millie, where can people find you?
You guys can find me on my YouTube channel at Into the Nook. You guys can also find me on Instagram at Into the Nook Realm for all bookish related videos. Greta, where can they find you?
You can find me at Greta's Favorite Things on YouTube and on TikTok and on Twitch. I stream on Twitch Mondays and Wednesdays at 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. PST. We are currently playing Super Mario 64, and I am struggling. That game is so hard, girl. I don't remember it being that hard. It's a process. We're making our way through it. It'll be fine. All right, so we will be back next week with Say You Remember Me by Abby Jimenez, and then after that, This Is How You Lose a Time War by Alma El Motar and Max Gladstone. Yeah, if you liked our podcast, please give us a like. Please comment whether you are a mystery reader and what were your thoughts on this book? Because clearly I think it should be for mystery readers, and Millie's like, no, this is for novices. We will see you in 2 weeks. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.